Hi everyone, my name is Allison. Today I'm going to be talking about my past year with All Hands and Hearts, which is an international natural disaster response organization. So I spent 5 months in Fort Myers after Hurricane Ian and 3 months in Paradise, California with Camp Fire happened in 2018. So a week from today is actually going to mark the anniversary of Hurricane Ian hitting the southwest coast of Florida as a Category 4 storm. Growing up, I've lived in Florida my whole life, and we're very used to hurricane season. And when a storm came through, it kind of felt like an equivalent to a snow day, right? It meant that there was no power. My family and I would play board games. It meant no school. I don't think I ever realized the impact that a storm can have on these communities. So my mom and I decided that we wanted to volunteer and go help after we saw the devastation that happened in Fort Myers. And we planned to just go for 2 weeks, but I fell in love with the work and the communities that I helped and the volunteers that I worked with, and I ended up staying for 5 months. And the work we did was debris removal, muck and gut, and mold sanitation. And so pretty much what that means is when we come into a home, everything, their furniture, their personal belongings have been tossed around, broken, and soaked from the storm surge. I worked in homes where the water was a couple of feet, up to 18 feet of water. These communities, they lost everything within a day. So we would go in, we would go through everything, see what's salvageable, help the homeowners sort through their belongings, see if they could find anything that they had lost. And we would take it all out, and then we would start the gutting process. And this is me actually showing the water level in the home. We worked in a lot of mobile home communities, as there's many in that area. One of the mobile home communities we worked in was actually 700 mobile homes. And these communities are not made to withstand these level of storms. So the work was incredibly needed. So after the muck and gut, we would go in with the mold sanitation team. And pretty much what that meant was scrubbing everything top to bottom and spraying it with a mold killer. And then at that point, it was ready so that the homeowners could live back in their homes and start to rebuild. And that meant everything for some homeowners because there were people who would put plywood down on their floors and they were living in that mold because they had nowhere else to go. But they were living in a tent in their driveway or in their car in their driveway and they had nowhere to go. And they needed that help, and knowing that there were people there that understood that they needed support long term. So it was really an impactful experience for me to be able to firsthand see what a hurricane could do to these communities and to understand the need, especially with natural disasters occurring so much more often now. So one thing that really kind of left me with a lot of love in my heart was the volunteers and the staff on program. I always tell my friends that they are my superheroes. They truly are. They have spent years dedicating their time, learning this work, teaching it to others, and they continue to do so to this day. Fort Myers program is actually currently still running, and they need volunteers. A year later, and they are rebuilding these homes, and they need help because unfortunately, it has been forgotten as so many disasters have been in the past. So if you ever have the opportunity to do this, the community is incredible and loving and compassionate, and even though you don't think so, you're going to be this big adopted family. Whether you're there for a day or a month, it's really an incredible feeling. And the homeowners feel this love and compassion and the difference that made for them, listening to their stories, hearing their frustrations, having someone to talk to. One of the homeowners that we worked on, she actually, every night we lived in the church, she would come to our church and she would make dinner with us and she would sit and have dinner with us. And at the time, she lived in her car, and this had been 3 months after the storm, and she continued living in her car. And having that homemade meal every night and that conversation, you could just see the light come back to her and the resilience that some of these homeowners had and their intent to rebuild and to have their life back was really incredible and inspiring. So I left Fort Myers to work in Paradise, California, because All Hands and Hearts decided to hire me as the volunteer relations coordinator. And it was a very interesting experience to go from Fort Myers, where the disaster had happened 2 weeks prior, to what it looks like 5 years later. And one thing I can tell you is how much the need is still there. But it's difficult because these communities believe that they were forgotten and that nobody remembers and that there's not anybody left that wants to help. So the work that we did there was mitigation work, and that was felling fire hazard trees. So any trees that land on their home and their driveway, on the escape route out of town, and then creating fuel breaks by doing weed abatement. And so if there was a wildfire, ideally that would protect the homes. So the work was incredibly needed, and on top of that, we did 2 housing programs. One with Tiny Pines, a nonprofit organization that builds small homes on wheels that gets delivered to families who lost their homes in wildfires. And the other was CHIP, which is Community Housing Improvement Program, and that is building homes in the burn scar that then go directly to people who survived the Camp Fire in 2018. One of our big goals with this program was connecting with these communities because they believed that they'd been forgotten and that nobody cared. I remember going to Sacramento to a restaurant not too many hours from there, and they asked me what I was doing here because I said I was from Miami. I said, well, I was a long way away from home. And I said that we had been working on recovery from the Camp Fire in 2018. I remember they said, a fire in Paris, that sounded familiar. I couldn't believe it. Just a few hours away, people had forgotten. So a big thing was connecting with that community and letting them know that we didn't forget and that we wanted to be there to support them. Why I'm here today is to encourage you all that the next time that there's a natural disaster, to keep the conversation going, to talk about it with your coworkers, your family, your friends, post about it on social media. Don't let their stories be forgotten, because natural disasters, they don't pick and choose who they affect. In a matter of a day, families lose everything, and it's important because one day I might be affected, you might be affected, family, friends, and they need to know that there's support out there that understands the long-term need. Thank you.